Hi, my name is Terry Miller with Terry's Tidbits, and today we are continuing our series of moving from Process Builder to Lightning Record Triggered Flows. And the element that we are looking at specifically today is going to be the update record element. So let's go ahead and jump in and take a look. Let's start by looking at our cheat sheet. And again, just as a reminder, this one is about creating records. And we will slide down on our cheat sheet, and on the left-hand side, you see the pictures of what it looks like to create a task record in this scenario where you're creating a task. And on Process Builder, these are the screens that you would see on the left side. And then to do the same action, we have the screens on the right side. So that's our cheat sheet. Because this is creating a new record, it is a record that is different than the record that triggered our flow. So we are going to be in a after record trigger flow today. So remember those rules. If we are updating a record, modifying something on the record that triggered the flow, we'll be in a before record trigger flow. If it's anything else, it's going to be in the after trigger flow. So let's take a look at what this actually does. And I'm on an account record here, and I've got a log a call custom action that I've created. And I've added two fields to this, one that's a follow-up date and one that is a follow-up subject. And what this custom action allows me to do is to log my call and at the same time create a follow-up task. So let's go ahead and test this out. I'm just going to leave that in as is. We'll put a follow-up date of tomorrow with a subject of, we'll just call it Project Kickoff. Now in real life, I'd probably have comments here as well documenting today's call, but what we're really looking at is this follow-up information. So I'm going to go ahead and save that. And you'll notice that it created my current call, and it's got that marked as happening today. And then tomorrow, it's got my project kickoff task created there for me. So that's what we're going to replicate in Flow. So here's what it looks like in Process Builder. We're on the task object. We have a very simple decision here that says if the follow-up date is not false, meaning we've got a value, as well as the subject is not null, then we would create a new task. So this is what it would look like to create that task in Process Builder. And then we also have kind of a simple little update here at the very end that clears out that follow-up date in the subject. We are going to focus today just on the create, but just so that you kind of get a sense as to what the entire process looks like, there is that process there of clearing the existing follow-up fields. So let's jump over here to Flow. And again, we're going to create a new flow. It is going to be a record trigger flow. Remember, your screen may not look exactly like this. You may have some additional items on there. So we're selecting record trigger flow, and we're going to stick to the auto layout. I still like this for those of you who are new. It just is kind of a guided action of what you need to do. So it's just a little bit simpler than coming into a totally blank canvas. All right, and so we mentioned this needs to be a after record trigger. It's already defaulting to that, and it's when a record is created. I'm okay with it being when the record's created for this. So we're going to leave those settings. But we do need to choose our object, so we'll choose task. And it's going to run always here. So letting it run always just allows me to add multiple decisions to a single flow, similar to what you would do with Process Builder, where they're encouraging you to put all of your items in one Process Builder for a given object. I'm doing the same thing here with Flow. All right, so now that we have our start set, let's go ahead and click on the plus to add an element, and we're going to quickly add a decision. We've talked about decisions in our second video, so I'm going to do this just relatively fast so that we get it in here. And I'm going to just simply call it decision has follow-up data. And we'll call this label the same. And our condition is simply going to be $record follow-up. Remember, the $record in this case is our task record that triggered the flow. Is null equals false. And just because I don't want an error, I'm going to also check to make sure that our follow-up subject is null is also false. Okay, so there's my condition. Our default outcome, we're simply going to call continue. Okay, so now I've got my two paths, and we're going to go down the has follow-up data, and this time we're going to add an element, and our element is going to be the create record element. The create record screen is somewhat similar to what you would see in Process Builder in that we do have to give it a label. So let's go ahead and give it a name, and we'll call it create follow-up task. And then we get into this middle section of the screen, and we're thinking, well, that doesn't look like Process Builder. And you're right, it does not look like Process Builder. We've got the ability with Flow to do much more than what we can do in Process Builder. And one of those things is we could create multiple records at the same time. We can also define this record before we ever get to the create the record. So think of the create as the process of saving the record. We could have defined it in a either by getting a record and making changes to it, maybe like if you were trying to clone a record, for example, you could get it, make some changes, get rid of the ID, and then come over to the create new and have it already defined, ready to create or save. The other thing we could have done is have an assignment where we build out the fields and its values in an assignment before we ever get into this particular process of saving that record. Those are both a little bit more advanced. We're going to try to keep this really simple and much more like what you would have in Process Builder. So we are going to create a single record, and we're going to choose the use a separate resource with literal values. So this makes the process much more like Process Builder. And then my final step on this screen is to choose my object. So let's choose tasks. Now you'll notice once I have my object in here, I start to get fields and their values. So that is very much like what you see here in Process Builder, where we have our fields and then we have the value that comes in. So let's go ahead and get our fields added here. And I'm just going to add a few of these just to get them in the screen ready to go. In our first field, and this is just my personal preference as I'm working through these types of things where I have to create multiple fields. Again, I'll just start at the top of my list and scroll through here and see which ones of these do I need to fill out. So I don't need any of these because this is going to be the new record. I do want priority. And after priority, let's create our owner. There's all of our recurring ones. We can skip those. Our status we need to use. And we'll have a subject. What else do we have here? The subtype, and then we need 2 additional fields, it looks like. And that's the what ID and our who ID. All right, so there's my fields. Now let's go ahead and get the value set. So our activity date, that's the due date of the task. So that's going to be set to what the user entered as the follow-up date. So that's $record. And we're going to go down to follow-up date. The priority, we're just going to set that to the same priority as well as the original record. So let's look for $record again. And priority. The owner is going to be the same person as well. So let's go back to $record and assign it to our owner. Status, in this case we have to tell it our status of not started, because this will be the new task. We have not done anything on it, so we want that to be not started. Our subject is also going to come from $record, and that's going to be that follow-up subject. Our task subtype, you kind of get the idea here that we keep just taking the values off of the original record as we go through this, and that is how we define our create record. And our last one is $record who. All right, and then we'll say we are done, and you can see we've got that create task, create that follow-up task ready to go in Flow. So hope that's helpful. This is how we would create a record. Now, if you were wanting to build the whole thing out, you would need to add an additional element here to clear the original records, the original task. You want to clear out those two follow-up values so that they don't inadvertently create another follow-up task if somebody were to go back and edit that original task. So if you like the concept of how this works, you could certainly build that out, but make sure that you add both of those elements to your flow, and it should work really well for you. Remember to save it. You will need to activate it once it's saved, and then test it out, and you should be all good to go. Hope you find that helpful. Please remember to subscribe to my channel, and you can go over also and look at the terrystidbits.com blog site, and you can download the cheat sheet from there, as well as subscribe to that as well. There are times when I don't do video for some of my posts, and there's also times when I do videos and not post. So make sure you subscribe to both so you don't miss anything. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I hope you have a wonderful day.